when I used to be a kid, I dreamed of having this ownership layer, basically. I mean, when I say it, it sounds quite complicated, but in my imagination, I was like, what if I can own a single parking lot? Or what if I can own this fucking tree, right? And make money out of it. And I think that's what DePIN is trying to do. And today's world, through basically the let's say, decentralization that the crypto industry has. What the fuck is going on?
Hey Meta, can you tell this guy to shut up?
What the fuck? Okay, guys, thank you for coming to today's episode.
You see, sometimes technology is not very useful because it violates.
The code of conduct.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, what the fuck is going on?
But yeah, I mean, I get your point. And like, we've had discussions about DePIN specifically.
Yeah.
And we are DePIN-aholic in some ways, right?
Yeah, we are deep in a hole, but still we don't. I think we should start buying devices and DePIN devices that we just have all around the studio. Like,
And I
imagine a helium, like fucking, I don't know, hotspot here, and then a DeCharge EV charger up there where we charge like the whole neighborhood's EV.
if people don't know you, they would think that you're very credible and you know what you're talking about, right?
I am.
But like, your favorite car is a Tesla.
Of course.
Like,
Look, man.
that's all someone needs to know about you to determine what kind of person you are. But for the sake of this episode, wanting a Tesla is actually a good thing.
Yes, it is. And we're gonna talk to the doctor about this because this was a direct violation. Fucking hell, I keep stuttering, guys. Send me to a doctor. But yeah, this is the direct violation of EVs, man. EVs are amazing. I don't want to like hear my car go like, oh no. I want to be like, like a piano playing in the background. But still, what I was trying to say is, imagine solo Satoshi mining right there, helium hotspot right there, the beast charger up there. I don't know, man. Like, just imagine the passive income and how interesting it would be. In my opinion, it would just be so interesting to have all of that. A futuristic household, in my opinion. But yeah.
Yes, but I would rather hear it from Doctor himself, not from you. So, without further ado, we have Dr. Prakash from DeCharge joining us today, and he will be telling us all about, like,
tell this guy to shut up. We have a call.
Yeah, so let's start.
I love you. I love you more than you know.
I don't love you back.
Hello, Prakash. Thank you for joining us today at the Hodl Up show. We're not going to call it a podcast today. It's going to be a show. So, before we start getting into like the technical things and all the technology behind everything you guys have been building, especially DePIN, let's just talk about your origin story, man. Right? Because me and John were talking about the innovation and everything, but still, we want to still hear, how did you join crypto, and then how did DeCharge come to be?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Origin story, I think, most people's arc is always starting into trading, then of course getting deeper into the ecosystem, and then kind of coming into some sort of innovational hack, learning, unlearning a lot of stuff. So my story was basically like, I would say pre-pandemic is when I didn't even know you could build products out of crypto. I was just investing on and off, buy high, sell low, all sort of stuff. I think my biggest unlock was doing like a proper deep dive into mastering Bitcoin, mastering Ethereum. These were the open source books. I think one of the best books ever written, to me personally. So that's when kind of went deep in the rabbit hole, starting off with smart contracts and all of it. So I come from a deep technical background as well. I was in the medtech startup industry. So back in the day, even coming from a very busy background, I'm always even the startup industry was very slow for me. And the traditional ones, I think that's how most people start. So to me, once I got red pilled into it, and I think there's no looking back. So during pandemic time, everyone was holding on to their full-time jobs. I went the other way around, deep down the rabbit hole, quit full-time. And it was at least like a 2 full years. DeFi summer happened. Everyone made money, lost some money. But the learning kind of stayed. So I think for a whole 2 years, I was contributing to a lot of Ethereum working groups. That was like very fulfilling. I think the Polygon ecosystem also was like one early. I was kind of observing. The trajectory actually started around late 22, I would say. Solana had its ups and down moments, and Super Team was a community back then. It was like just like a group of 10 people in a Discord. They were very permission into taking people at the time. So I was fortunate to be at the earliest when it was just Super Team India. Right now it's called Super Team India. Back then it was just one Super Team, kind of bootstrapped by Akshay Cash and all of them. So that was my entry. Then I got into full time as well, leading the tech team at one of the Web3 social media companies, which is backed by Republic Crypto. So that was a whole 2 years, which felt like 5 years in traditional world. Yeah, that was kind of what kind of drove me into the trenches, bear market and all of it. Towards the end of the stint is when I wanted to work on some problem statement that was like deep and fulfilling. That was close to my background, which was like hardware and software and deep tech. That's when I met my co-founder, who was actually onto something at the time. We didn't know how big it could be at the time. We wanted to work on a problem statement that doesn't change in 5 years. That has a really good growth story to the average user, not just to the crypto natives. And that was the inspiration to kind of go deep into DeCharge, specifically what works in today's market. What can we solve for the local markets first, and also innovating for the global market. We were seeing how DePIN was evolving as a whole. Helium, however, being the first gen projects, kind of evolving really well. They came onto Solana after working on their own blockchain. I think that kind of opened a lot of doors in terms of how we wanted to think. And DeCharge just happened to kind of sit exactly where we wanted to build. So that's when we got into the Solana hackathon, which is like a very good, it was first of its kind startup competition. That was very exciting for us. We straight away jumped into the hackathon, focused on product building first. A lot of people build for crypto infra first and then figuring out product and praying for demand, right? So we were fortunate to pick a problem statement that had like a demand layer from the very start, and that's what drove us. That's what actually has been driving us up until today, and that's been the short version of DeCharge's growth story.
Yeah, and like I think majority of people join crypto, by trading or investing and all that. But it's a whole different ball game when you involve hardware as well. And I think I'd like to think that crypto is not just about learning. It's not just a journey about learning how to do things. It's also about a journey on how to unlearn things, or rewire your brain in some aspects. So I want to hear from you, given that you're the deep-in doctor at this point. So what's one hard problem you've had to basically unlearn or relearn in terms of building DeCharge, and how has that shaped your approach to both customer support and hardware sales in general? I mean,
of course, it's a very good question. I think hardware requires a lot of patience. Hardware is, like Balaji says, hardware is hard. That's the most obvious one. But I think bootstrapping early growth is very important. How do you differentiate with to the existing world of startups, right? That's very important. I think usually when it comes to investments in the traditional world, most investors are allergic to investing in hardware because it has a very plateau phase after a couple of rounds, and they don't no longer get investments. They go into a plateau phase. None of it works. So that is almost like a glass eating phase. Whereas in DePIN, it's mostly about the same unlearning, right? You have to be really patient at the start. Make sure you absolutely have a differentiating idea, right? Because last couple of years we've been speaking to a lot of EV infra experts from Tesla and Europe. Most of the companies, what they were making and what trends was going, where they're hitting the plateau. And for us, most important was not to straight away jump into capital markets. Also solve for a problem that works for what's happening today. For us, of course, starting with Asia is was very important. what really worked in the today's market, right? And where the demand flowing. For us, it was all about tapping into the commercial vehicle infrastructure. Uh, Doing that in Asia is no joke. Otherwise, you would have seen Tesla and a lot of companies that built in the US. They would already be making inroads into Asia. That doesn't happen very easily. So, whereas for us, the bigger challenge that's never been done before is how do you start from the east and then grow to the west? And I think we already seen projects kind of have that kind of growth, right? You build for a local problem statement, use the community growth kind of incentivize the supply side across the world, and very good projects are there, right? Like HiMapper, who are able to map like 30% of, if not more, of the world's global road infra, right? Those data are like very important. That has already shown how it DePINs can scale. For us, it's more about how do you unlock cultural markets, make sure it works the case to case basis, because none of it is extensible across the world. So we're very sure and kind of studying as we had more action, and we also had enough insights of each country. Now we are pretty much confident of what is the market insight that unlocks to getting into a market fit, whether it's India, Southeast Asia, US. So we have got it covered. I would say we have got it covered mainly because like we're pretty confident that that's very important. The most important part of an entrepreneur's journey is like it's always ups and downs. How you keep up the vision, and it's a cycle of we are so back. The next day is like, oh my god, we are so down. So it's the same cycle. So the differentiating factor is to have the consistency no matter what. Keep a very stubborn vision and never give up. That's the recurring cycle, and that's very common trend in crypto as well. That teaches you a lot. So that saves us from the trenches, not get tempted by very volatile markets. Whereas hardware infra, you have got to make sure that it has a very steady growth at the start, and also give something predictable for the customers. At the end of the day, that's what's important. If you're not solving something that also makes people some money out of it, then it's not worth solving anything, right? So that is like very important for us. And once we kind of kept discovering that layer by layer, I think it was no looking back for us.
Yeah, I think like one of the examples I like to take when we're talking about entrepreneurs and their journey is like, it's similar to the Bitcoin chart, right? It's extremely volatile, and the people around the founders, they're always like, we're so back, just as you said. I mean, we're so back. Okay, it's so over. We have to leave. So, and since you mentioned the investors like having a hard time, the hardware part, as you just mentioned. Yeah. I've been looking at like the revenue and the profit, and then basically the break-even days that it takes for people and deployers to basically get after they deploy your hardware. So I think it's one of the best in let's call it mining. I like to call everything that we do in DePIN and everything, I just call it mining, right? Yes. It's technically you're mining something, although you're providing a service. So how did you guys achieve this? Because I think in my opinion, I love DePIN and I researched it quite a bit. I think that's the second biggest issue with keeping a community and keeping the deployers happy. Like, how did you do this?
Exactly. Yeah, for this I would take a step back, right? Like, for example, most hard problems that require solving, it takes at least like 5 years. No joke. Like, you have to have that stubborn vision. And what really kept us going was the 2.5 approach. We were very clear in terms of not solving something like what people can mine and like kind of gamify the system. That's like very important to protect from. Right now, I think there are a lot of mature systems, right? Like, for example, at least when you're building on Solana specifically, like, you don't know. So it kind of very maturing ecosystem, community, everything. So you get like a very mature approach in terms of what is the priorities, right? You start with the product, keep building that as much as possible till you reach PMF, because almost everything comes later. Tech is always like an enabler of sorts, right? So we were always very careful in allocating capital, not overbuild. Even today we kind of follow them. Probably in the next 6 months we'll still be on to the same approach. And the early adopters for us has been like very patient, very understanding. They've invested like real money of anywhere from $200 all the way to $1,000. Make sure they see the value, and we also make sure that we avoid mistakes that other DePIN projects have done in the past. and that's what we were like very bullish on solving. And the community is the bedrock of everything. Of course, marketing, everything is kind of, if your early contributors are not understanding your problem statement, it becomes very difficult. So even at an early stage, we had straight from December last year is when we had our first community sale happening. So it was very slow, but people kept believing this is like a very new exciting problem statement, and they come around and they have a very patient life cycle. We were usually crypto often incentivizes short-term behavior, right? But this industry basically has very mature, they have hardcore contributors, they adapt to all the business models you kind of want to impart to the broader community. And I think that's been the behavioral support to us. And we always have a very engaging community, month on month, week on week. We make sure that we convey. And of course, startup life is like building a rocket ship. So tremendous amount of patience on both sides, and we're pretty happy with that approach as well, and make sure that the long-term believers are also rewarded in the long term in the cycle of events. So that's been our major inspiration to keep this going.
Yeah, and kind of want to relate a bit to also what is asked, because when people think of not just crypto, but let's say DePIN, there's a lot of actors that you have to kind of satisfy, starting from the community, like investors, employees even. And ironically, and this is the part of crypto that I do not like, is that people tend to only focus on the metrics. Like when there's a token launch, for example, they look at the market cap, and that's the only thing they look at. And since DePIN, like in a way, promises passive income, what are the metrics that maybe you should track to ensure more long-term viability? Because if we look at, for example, just the number of charges that are sold, to me, it does not tell the full story. To me, for example, when I look at a project, I look at how many members in the community, like, are they active? Like, what's the sentiment in the community and stuff like that, which does not have to be quantified in a way. So I want to hear your take on this.
Yeah, definitely. That's a very good question. I think if you look at how even this year's breakpoint, what's the focus to this year is like, so on revenue and returns, and that very much resonates with the DePIN community as well. So you don't need to keep showing gamified metrics like token burn, revenues, all of that. You have to, at an early stage startup, you have to be willing to show that you're able to make some money, right? Because it takes time, the life cycle every hard problem that you're solving, it has like a very slow growth at the start. Then you have like a hockey stick metrics, right? That's very important. Like that's the whole alpha behind people who get early into a project. They know this is a very good problem statement to solve. That's something very important. And it's not just from investor perspective, right? You have to show the ability to make some money out of it, and that's very important. And if you're able to show that in a very early stage, that's what matters. And also not without sacrificing growth metrics, right? Growth metrics, everything across community, early traction. What is it that you're willing to solve? Because people are frankly kind of becoming nihilistic in the crypto ecosystem, because there are not enough real projects that show value. Value is the most important hidden alpha for people in today's world to believe in the ecosystem. To me, stablecoins is the only one that has absolute PMF. Everything is early. Stripe is launching their own blockchain that's going to be like, I don't know, it could be a corporate chain. You never know. Maybe it'll show a lot of value, right? At the other end, you have a lot of celebrity meme coins that is very predictable. Everyone knows it's going to have a down-only chart. People still invest and get burnt. And that's not going to stop. But at the same time, it's very important to be counterintuitive and be very focused, making sure you have the belief to me. You make some money. You're not going to die in like 2-3 years time. That alone is like very important, and I think that's very common for all the DePIN projects in general, right? Or any projects in this. You have to show even for DeFi projects, right? There's revenue is not there, but returns is there, right? People who come early, like Hyperliquid is one of the biggest examples, right? The early community, almost no big VC backing, but still they made it because they were focused on returns for the early customers, even right now. So that kind of exemplifies the belief that people had in the project. And it's going to be the same for all, right? Have to be very patient, have to be very transparent as much as possible. and be willing to show that you absolutely believe in hardcore metrics, not just the gamified meta that crypto has been making same mistakes over and over again. We kind of have to be very stubborn, not get distracted. And these are the kind of boring things, but you have to be like absolutely stubborn and get the early community backing and make sure they're also involved in the process.
You just said like these are the boring things, but they're the most important things. So
Exactly.
I have to change the topic a bit because you mentioned Stripe and their own L1 for the stablecoin payments. I mean, I have to ask you, like, what do you think? Why didn't they go with Solana or an L2 on Ethereum? Or, I mean, there's quite a lot of options today. Or
Yeah.
maybe they could have gone with a protocol that supports multiple chains, right? So if one fails, they have the other one. There's like quite a lot of approaches they could have taken. But why do you think? This is a personal question. Why do you think they did
Yeah,
that?
of course. Yeah, I think that's a very good contemporary topic, rightly, because if you take a step back and look at it, it's actually bullish for the ecosystem because they're trying to isolate the bit of risk that has the broader ecosystem that, like, very unpredictable for the traditional investors. Also, very important, right? They have to make sure they isolate a bit of risk, but at the end of the day, liquidity is very important. How they're gonna aggregate liquidity, they have to have the interop game sorted. And if you look at some of the founder's comments, right, even he has kind of says the same thing. All of it is going to be in the background. It's more of the efficient orchestration, right? Crypto is the best way of transferring payments, right? Bank is going to take, and if it's something instantaneous, you have like heavy fees. The only way to kind of avoid, and Stripe has been ahead of the game for a very long time. And there's also this meme that's going on, right? Okay, they are not even IPO'd. What is this? Is there exit? Probably like a, a token exit. You never know. These are all things we can't even speculate. But it's kind of bullish. They are taking an approach that isolates a bit of risk, that has like a broader ecosystem. A lot of politics they can avoid, but at the same time they'll definitely have something like an interop game that kind of is aligned with how USDC happens, right? USDC it's an example of, I mean, Circle is one of the biggest examples. They're in the IPO, they're like very bullish for the ecosystem. And like I said, stablecoin is the one that has absolute PMF. I think a year back when Stripe did some stablecoin acquisitions, it was very clear. A lot of stablecoin startups that were part of a lot of accelerators, they instantly had like a tailwind, very large investor interest, and all that is happening. And here also, it's, if you take a step back, it's kind of bullish for the meta. But I'm pretty sure it's more about risk isolation at the start. But they will definitely have like a very long approach when it comes to growing the use case across a lot of ecosystems. I think that's where it boils down to. And even they have been on and off, right? Like for 3 years ago, they were very allergic to crypto. They even shut down a lot of on ramps. Right now, then the last year they kind of came back into the ecosystem with a lot of great announcements, and that's bullish for the whole ecosystem in general. So yeah, I think that's where I would leave it. It'll be very interesting to see how they evolve beyond all the like memes on being a corporate chain and why did they not choose becoming an ETH2. It's like a bearish on ETH2. Like so many things are going around, but I think overall it's a very good news for the crypto industry in general.
From other DePIN projects, like we've heard that ever since the new administration in the US, there's been a more forward-looking approach on a lot of stuff because it's more crypto friendly. But it also depends like what is exactly you do with your project, because you guys tailor to electronic vehicles, right? And I know that the recent bill signed by President Trump on EVs, which I think cuts like the subsidies, it kind of indirectly impacts what you guys have been trying to do in terms of adoption, because I know that you guys have had quite the adoption in the United States in itself.
Yeah.
So I want to relate this a little bit to what's your take on the current trend of regulation, but also are you guys maybe focusing on more regional focus? Because on the community call, I saw that you announced the Surya project, which is in India. And so I just want to hear your take on this, like, because I'm pretty sure that you would need to adhere to the rules and regulations of every single country that you want to be integrated in. So and I know it's difficult, but like that's the current state of the market right now. I mean, we still don't have a uniform approach to crypto in general.
Yeah, I think there are two sides. This is like two sides of the coin. Like every time an announcement happens, there's two sides to the equation. What has interestingly happened is the subsidies that are actually dying out first is the solar ones, and the EV subsidies it still have, like it's still up until next year. The tailwind of that is actually the solar projects in the US are coming to us. They want to have newer revenue cycles. They are actually partnering with us to co-sales of co-deployments, all of that sort, right? People want energy efficiency. People want to subsidize their rising infra bills, right? I think energy economy is like much more underrated. It's not just about EV economy in general, right? And of course, the announcement itself, I think, for big companies like Tesla, they don't even get it. It actually strengthens their market position. On the other side, if you look at early stage startups like us, you figure out a way to grow no matter what. I think that's the adaptability of it. Like I said, right, this always up on you're so back, then you're back down in the trenches. So it's the same over here, right? So there are always two sides of the coin. You always have an opportunity that grow up. The larger industry, maybe so it may have like a very good, very massive impact, but for a startup, it's always somebody's plateau is our growth. That's how we kind of approach it. So it doesn't matter how the regulations kind of impact different initiatives, but we kind of find the opportunities definitely better than last 2 years. So that's been the opportunity for us, and we make sure that it's actually we grab hold of all the opportunities, that window that opens. And the other, I wouldn't say pivot, the operational aspect that we kind of also been focusing on, like how do we adapt to the supply chain aspect, right? Of course, this whole US China kind of impacts the entire DePIN industry. You see a lot of people who have ordered the device, the probably like 1 or 2 years, they still haven't got the device. That was something we were that we can't afford that luxury. So we're very sure, we're very adaptive, not only focusing on native supply chains, also make sure that you have local partners, local charge point operators, local manufacturers in the US and Canada as well. So that's something that was actually a major adaptation. Now we make sure that anyone orders the device in respective country, we don't make them waiting beyond a month. Make sure the device reaches them if they are very interested in hosting a station. And I think that's where we're kind of very propelling about, right? So I think that's the opportunity we kind of seized. So yeah, I think hardware industry is always hard for people. We are fortunate to have been in the early stage. We could figure out a way to grow no matter what, and learn from the mistakes that I wouldn't say mistakes, is more of market impact, right? So make sure you figure out windows of opportunity and make sure you adapt early on, rather than facing this like way later in the game where you can't afford to make a lot of expensive changes. So that's how we kind of look at it. And yeah, I think pro-regulatory approach is very good in the US. I think that's also been part of our strategy in the US. We have a lot of interest in the East Coast specifically. And it's not just about building a product that impacts just one particular community, that not just the DePIN community, right? We heavily work with the installer network local, because that's what each state and each county has its own laws and regulations, where one installer cannot work in another state. So that's also something learning we are kind of slowly uncovering as we work in every state, and make sure we kind of provide opportunities for them to work with us, educate them how this is bullish for them in general. And yeah, going back to the impacted subsidies itself, yeah, I think it kind of opened up a lot of doors. So solar companies are actually partnering with us, make sure they participate in our growth in general. So that's been the bullish update for us.
Okay, so now I have 3 questions. I'm going to try to condense them into one, because all of them have to do about growth, right? The first question would be, in terms of growth, you mentioned some parts in Asia and then the US. What about like different other countries that are smaller? Let's say Kosovo, from where we're from. And then the second one would be, in terms of like the solar, the partnerships you're kind of trying to do with the solar panel guys and everything.
Yeah.
How is that working for you? Because I think in crypto and in DePIN, partnerships are underlooked and not valued as much as they should be. I'm not just saying crypto as an industry, but DePIN specifically, because a DePIN startup in my eyes is way harder to grow than a startup outside of this industry and this specific sector, right? Because you're trying to adhere to some values that in a normal situation you wouldn't. And yeah, first these two questions, and then I'll touch on the third question as well.
Yeah, it's a very good question. So I think just take this was like 6 months back when we had our like investor due diligence happening. The one of the questions the investor asked was like, how will you deploy in different countries have their own different laws, especially in Europe. Each country is fragmented. US, at least to an extent, Asia, which is like home ground, we can figure out our way in. There was this question: how will you deploy in a country like, let's say, Italy, which has very picky on local laws, ownership, and all of it? He said, "We'll figure our way out." That was actually our honest answer. And a month back, so we have two modes of deployment, right? Either they delegate to us, or if they're very interested in hosting a station themselves, having like a very dual revenue setup, they order it. Right? So we had this one particular customer who ordered for the device. He's from Italy, and he's like one of the mature users. The moment he sent like a detailed email, he said, "I have my own land, I have my own electrician, I have my own solar setup. Can I make sure that this load bearing is good enough to host an EV charger?" We were actually mind blown, because my business team was actually puzzled, because you rarely come across customers who have very mature understanding, who have contributed on other DePIN projects, all of it. So the moment we saw the opportunity, we didn't hesitate. Like, we make sure that a working product reaches to him in as little as a month. And the moment we got on a call and understood how his understanding was, we were like, that's it, we have to do it. And we got on a call with him a couple of weeks, and we make sure the device is installed at his place in less than 2 weeks time and in configured to a network. All of this while having no idea how the law regulations will work, or how do we set up hosted agreements, all of it. We've always figured it out on the go. So, and now we are at a place where we can serve the single customer in a country that has never been served before, right? The same applies to all the European countries. You never know where the passionate customer is going from. You work on problem statements that are very hard to solve. And that's what's the inspiring takeaway from us. After that, we're very confident we can deploy in any country. As long as, even if we have one strong believer in that country, that is good enough to start. Because these are the things that don't scale. How do you figure it out, rather than worrying about we don't want to deal with this at this point, there's too much regulatory risk. But here, it gave us an ideal customer profile. He had control over the deployment. It was his own land, residential, that is actually fitted our ideal customer profile for international deployments, and we just went ahead and did it anyway. So that's how we kind of scale at the start. So you always make sure you find the first believer in that country, and that's all it takes. So hopefully we deploy in your country as well. We just need one passionate believer, and that's what we need.
I think you got the passionate believer, but I'm not the guy that's technical in terms of electricity, so I might just blow the whole thing up if I try to do something.
Don't worry.
Like that.
All you need is like one passionate believer. We'll figure things out. So it's there's a lot of hand holding that requires from our end. We definitely go to extreme ends to, as long as because a lot of customers, like, that is one customer who had everything technically figured out. Here in India and parts of Southeast Asia, like, they don't even know how electricity works. They're like, they ask questions like, if I plug this charger, will I get electrocuted if there is power surge? So we're very patient. We handhold, and it's like, because all these EV chargers that are deployed in house grids, it's like creating an axis. It's a plug point, right? It doesn't affect the electricity. It doesn't create like an upsurge of its own. It's a dumb charger at the end of the day, for lack of a better word, because it doesn't do anything to the electricity. It just creates like an outlet and makes sure there's as long as there's an internet connection, you would deploy onto the network. As it might be simpler as it sounds, it's not necessarily plug and play, but there is definitely a lot of hand holding which we keep doing. As more and more we learn from a customer perspective, we create a very good playbook, because this is something that's never been done before. Level 2 chargers, like a network, that doesn't exist. And when we talk to customers in US, like even like Tesla owners, right? When you talk to them about this use case, they're like actually inspired. This is like Airbnb for EV charging. I can never make money off it before. Now this is an opportunity, right? That's the belief and story that matters. You grow your OLA community, and you just have to educate them all the way. And after a certain point, your community is going to speak for you. So the strength of the story and problem solving is always how the community kind of grows across the world. So I think that's what we are very focused on, not worry too much about how the network incentives will launch, how will it incentivize supply side. We have already seen that. So we're very focusing on how it serves the individual customer and how we can do it. And of course, there are always some use cases where it may not be viable for support. So we always come back to them later. How do you solve a particular use case? But we always have like very good selection criteria to make sure that we are doing our best to kind of help them make money, right? That's very important. Whether there is a token or not, this is a use case where and you act like a host. Like imagine it was 1990s and you had an opportunity to invest in some of the fuel stations. You probably would. Now the opportunity is like 25 years later, it's still the same. It's kind of 35 years later, like the opportunity is ripe. You can host like the fuel station of the future because EVs are growing growth, infra is not keeping up. So that's where it boils down to how do you serve individual customer needs and make sure they benefit from the ecosystem.
Now that you mentioned the ecosystem, the users, and the deployers, this was the question related to growth as well. I mean, how do you think, of growing these incentives in the future, right? Because there's, in my opinion, there's like a whole world of opportunities to actually just implement things, right? So how do you think on plan? How do you plan on doing that actually?
It's very good, very good question, right? That's the difference between a traditional company and a community-led expansion. A centralized company always thinks about themselves, like because they have returns, they're thinking about their next board meeting, making sure the 90% revenues come back to the company. It's not like that for us. You create a pie chart where everyone benefits, and that is something it's very much possible in crypto. Like it's like an evolution of evolved cap table, right? That's why if you look at some of the projects like Helium, right, they don't do everything on their own. They also have like a very core community of DePIN deployers, hotspot deployers, all of them. They're like, they learn things very fast. Of course, there's incentives involved that kind of is very motivational. But at the same time, Helium's growth would not have been possible if they didn't have like a very hardcore community of DePIN deployers across the US. It's likewise in other countries. You always also see that impact in countries like Africa. So when we visited Africa, the same story kind of resonated. Like there are a lot of these different deployers who are deployed for other startups. They're coming back to us and saying, you know what, normal fuel companies are getting banned in parts of Africa. Like everyone is switching to EVs. There are hard government mandates. How can you help? So that's actually the serendipitous growth that we are seeing, thanks to early DePIN deployers and existing infra that has already been set up. People call them as DePIN shops, whereas actually like they're actually the backbone of the ecosystems. Without them, it's impossible to do an international expansion. A traditional company cannot think of doing it. Like there are companies in the US that have raised like $500 million. They're not been able to move out of US because they don't have the playbook that can be implemented from the start. That's what's like a great opportunity for us. So DePIN deployers, users, not just for incentives, they come across something that is beneficial for them as well as the broader ecosystem. And that's the same playbook we have for expansion as well, right? It's not just DePIN deployers. How do you partner with as many people as possible, even if they don't know anything about crypto? That's when we make sure that they get a good benefit of getting in early. We partner with them as much as possible, not make it like a zero-sum game where it's only like one company benefiting from it. There's actually a broader ecosystem in different countries. So that's the growth story for ecosystem in particular.
Yeah, so now I want to go back a bit to when you talked about the deployment and you hand-holding and guiding in terms of that. But has there been a time where it was really like a net negative, let's say for the neighbors of the person who's making the deployment? Like, has there been like cases where there was really like a negative externality maybe, and how were they compensated in such cases? So this is just like something that interested me a bit when I heard you talk about it. So I want to hear like, has there been any cases like that, and how have people dealt with it? Because at the end of the day, I mean, you're guiding them, but that's guidance, like just guidance. I mean, it falls down to them to actually make the improvement.
Yeah, it's so. I mean, you guys are asking some amazing questions. Questions I've never been asked before. I'm glad you're asking as well, right? So I would say there's a good story. Like, so early 2025, we spent like 6 months back and forth in the US. As in more and more we were personally deploying, we knew the market and we were seeing the difficulties we were able to overcome. The biggest pain point we knew will happen is how do you do remote deployment? because you can't be in 10 places at once, although we are in some way. But our biggest, I would say, battle test was how do we do it remote? Like, can people actually do it? Can they actually pull it off? That's like almost like gives the team a lot of nervousness, because no, I don't think any company puts the onus on the customer to figure it themselves. They will just send them a set of boilerplate instructions, manuals, all of it, right? So our biggest beta testing, I would say A/B testing, right? How do you do remote deployment for different set of customers, right? Who are very mature, who know how to work with hardware. Also people who don't understand any of it. Like they're gonna ask you the most basic questions. So that's what we kind of battle hardened ourselves. And the biggest so after the 6 months we came back, we were very make sure that we have to keep trying out this remote deployment. You're gonna get a lot of customer feedback. So that was our biggest holy grail in the last couple of months. We faced exactly what you are describing. So there was a content creator who works with us, and we were very nervous because, okay, what if she doesn't figure it out? It's like very difficult installation because it involves electricity, not just like a device that you deploy on the rooftop and it starts gaining incentives. It's not that. It's very nuanced. So we did it, I think. To our surprise, she did the first set of installation all by herself. Like, you need an electrician to step. The moment the electrician came, he knew what to do. And after that, the first part of setup was done very seamlessly. On the other hand, we were working with a few deployers who were actually mature, but they were struggling with it. And we were almost having like sleepless nights to the whole week to make sure that deployment happens and the first charging session happened. So it took like an entire week to make sure the device was up and running. It was actually operational. This is even way before we integrate them onto the app, right? So that was our battle testing moment. And this is not going to stop, right? As we keep doing all this remote installations process, you will have all sets of customers. You learn and unlearn a lot of things, and don't make broader assumptions. I think projects in general, no offense to any of them, right? And they make a lot of assumption onto the customer. It's very dangerous to make that in any startup world. So very careful not to make assumptions. Gather feedback as much as possible. Be painfully immune to no matter what they say. You kind of try to solve it step by step and making sure you're kind of battle tested for all of it. And even if it takes like 10 nights to explain them, you got to make sure you're there. So that's how the famous stories happen. But yeah, it's like even when success is not guaranteed, how do you kind of make sure you solve that problem statement? And it still continues. We still have a lot of customer profiles we're going to sit through day and night and make sure that the remote installations happen. It's easy for us to take a flight and go make sure you fix it and come back. That's no, but then that doesn't give you customer insight, right? How do we solve it for different customers, right? So that's something we're very nervously handling it. But I think so far so good. But I wouldn't take any assumption that it's the easiest one to do. But we make sure they're there for the customer who kind of deploys it.
Well, let me just say that you guys should be like the benchmark on how to deal with the customers and stuff. So, I mean, kudos to that. So, but if you thought that was a good question, now I have a difficult question for you. So let's say the Mini, the Beast, and the DC Fast are your kids. Which one is your favorite kid?
I would take a recent bias mainly because I wouldn't say it's a newer favorite kid. It's more about it gives a clear, like, there's a lot of education when it comes to some of the device, right? You always had to handle, be prepared to a lot of questions. So when with the project Surya we did the Verify Hub, it has a composite deployment, right? It has the Beast level 2 charging that serves as a destination charging. The long-term dwelling time, make sure it's always deployed in high traffic areas. The DC Fast is one where it's where the money is. If you see the global infra expanding, real estate is expensive. The more every year it gains expensive, how do you make sure that, how do you give the opportunity for creating access for customers, right? I think the DC Fast is kind of provides the answer to that. And I would say so because we observed all the projects in general, and we didn't want to do the same thing over and over again, that what other projects already done. We were like, what is the hard problem statement we can actually do for them? Create access to the revenue generating assets, which is the DC fast charging. If let's say in Europe or US, if it probably takes like 20-30K to have set up your own DC station, and it's almost near impossible. But if you create access for people to kind of be a part of the broader, the one actually gives like almost like predictable returns, DC fast is their answer. And it's still early, because we look at the AI fair meta, like whatever people call it. I mean, like if you look at some of the projects like Aether and all of it, Aether, Ionet, they have unlocked a very important meta, because the bigger GPUs are always with the bigger companies. Nobody's going to give access, right? That they're solving a problem which may not even be acceptable, like to the broader people. Who's going to work on virtual GPUs? But there's a huge demand for it. There's a community growth involved. The closest answer for that in our problem statement, as an early, I would say early mover, because it's their market doesn't exist for this. But DC fast charger kind of provides the answer. We have seen that we have done a lot of AMAs. We kind of make it very educational, and there's always an opportunity for both. The larger numbers will always come from the mini and beast, and it's not always going to be possible for everyone to deploy a DC fast. It's very expensive, but creating that access for anyone to kind of be a part of the DC fast economy is going to be very bullish for the ecosystem. It's going to be in 2 years. I would almost make a bold prediction saying that it will be as good as the AFI meta. This is something that's hard and real, and deploying a very real world asset in prime real estates, because high traffic, it's almost virtually almost impossible for us to compete with larger companies. But when you get the community involved, that's where the unlock happens. You creating access is the biggest problem statement that crypto has solved. Right from equity markets, tokenized equities. That's something like very bullish. Solana Policy Institute has been working on that. That's a bigger macro. Creating access for people to invest in. How do you invest in a Tesla stock using one Sol in your Phantom wallet? That's possible today, right? And this, believe me, this people have been having a shot at it for almost years. They call it synthetic tokens, and it was not working. Even the biggest companies like Binance have been trying to solve it. Right now, today, that's possible. The same thing with us. I think the DC fast is going to be really amazing. People want instant charging, because that's a harder problem statement, right? Like if you look at refilling a fuel station takes like 5 minutes, no matter what. But even with the DC fast chargers, it probably takes 20 to 40 minutes. And it's a long time, but it's still faster than your home charging, which probably takes overnight. But DC fast is a very rapid growth. It's highly competitive, and there has to be like some accessible solution. How do you kind of scale and catapult across the traditional companies? Because if you look at the company like Tesla, Supercharger, network is its own company, and there are like, whenever there are like high like let's say firing that happens at which is very common, right? They immediately get recruited by your competitors. All of them are moving into DC fast. That's the bigger macro. The companies in between don't have a chance. Like it's almost impossible to set up their own DC charging infra. Europe is prime example of that, right? You see German startups working on the most insane configuration for a DC fast charging. They run out of money, they get acquired, the cycle continues. But crypto kind of unlocks creating the community access and getting that opportunity for people to invest in. I think that's going to be very bullish for the ecosystem.
Okay, now I would like to go back to Mini and the Beast, because I like the idea of being a simple man mining through helping people charge their EVs. So
yeah,
consider me as a good deployer, right? I want to deploy, and I'm purchasing both the Mini and the Beast. How would you, let's say, not guide me, just give me the shortest guide, 3-step guide on deploying those devices and actually having them function? I mean, as simple as it gets, right?
Yes. I think having your own fuel station is the selling point. Because most of today's, if you look at the EV market in general, if somebody is selling an EV, they sell a charger along with a home charger that's very slow, overnight charging. So Mini is actually the same configuration as your whole wall connector, even the Tesla chargers that sit at your home. They are not accessible to the public. You can't. There's literally not possible to configure it for other vehicles to come and charge. That doesn't happen. Next is, you want, let's say, idle parking lot. You want to make some money out of it. And when I say make money off it, is like, how do you earn from it? By creating access for electricity, right? Creating access for EVs to come and charge. That's what we kind of enable with the devices, right? It's not just about mining your own thing. That doesn't solve an actual problem. But make sure the selection criteria is always like, do you have a parking lot? Can you deploy for the broader community? Even if you're helping your neighbors across, that's good enough. You don't need to become like a fuel station, serve like 20 EVs a week. Even if you're helping solve the range anxiety for your neighbor. Just to give an example, we didn't know this was actually possible. So we did our first deployment when we were in Mountain Dow last year at Denver. So we set up. We actually thought, okay, we deployed the beast in a garage. It was a proper garage startup days. We set it up and make sure that, okay, nobody's going to use it. A Tesla guy will probably go to a supercharger station or his own home charger. It so happened that there was a party happening that week, and there's a guy who came to us, my Tesla is at 2%. Can I use your device to charge it? And I was like, of course. We set it up immediately, got it up and running. It was slow. Obviously, it's much slower than the supercharger, but he was able to add like the 15 miles to his Tesla, and he went to the nearest supercharger station and got it charged. So that was our actual proof of concept, which is something we never thought was possible, but he was able to do that. And imagine if people could make money of it. That's what the devices do. So and even like there are two ways to do it, right? You can, let's say you're not unsure, like, I don't want to do the hard work, I'm not a hardware guy, I want to delegate the deployment to the company. I want to see how they work and look at the dashboard, look at the metrics, see actual usage happens. That is one way of doing it. But you're shipping it to yourself, we enable that for you and make sure you have the platform to make money from it. When you say make money, it's about you're providing value to someone favorable an actual problem statement. How do you solve from something outside of your house? And people always ask, it's as a customer, I don't like people coming into my driveway. But if you're solving a problem that's good value exchange, you can actually get paid for solving someone's problem statement, and people don't mind that, right? Convenience is the meta, and people are always happy to pay the extra bucks if it gets them to the nearest supercharger station. That's how I would put it. So if you're in, it could also be like many kind of services. It could also serve the cars, but it's much lower. But for two-wheelers in particular, that's how it kind of solved for us in today's world. We are deployed like we do almost like 50 sales a day in India specifically, because a lot of commercial EV infra in the two-wheeler section that requires charging almost every day, right? Like they can't afford to solve only charge at either at their home or the commercial hub at the which is always crowded. You always need equitable access across the grid, and that's how we kind of make sure this problem statement happens. So mini and beast just for that. It's actually affordable. It doesn't cost you like $10,000, which is the average deployment capital required to set up an EV station. But we make sure you bring the cost down, get people to create access, and solve for something that's bigger companies are not even worried about. So that's how I would sell it to you.
Well, I don't know for others, but you ticked all the boxes for me. So yeah. I have one final question to wrap it up, because one of the guys in the studio said, can you ask a 3-word question? And I'm like, yeah, for sure. And my question to you is, what's the alpha?
Damn. I didn't see that coming. Alpha is okay. I think alpha is actually, it goes back to the 3 products that you mentioned, right? I think the DC fast is one of the many. The alpha is, of course, people know this Bangalore infra that's being deployed. The alpha is now bigger capital markets. I would keep the viewers guessing whether it's US and Europe, but there's also another alpha happening in Southeast Asia. That's we're collaborating with a very, very big, very big partner, and they came to us because they were really bullish on the concept of DePIN 5, liquidity pools, and all of how it kind of unlocks a problem statement for them. So they came to us without even thinking how it would solve for them. That's a work in progress, but that's certainly bullish. I think this intro happened through one of our angel investors, one of our largest angel on our cap table. He made the intro, and they were like, "There's this kind of hooked." So that's one happening in Southeast Asia, US and Europe. There are a couple of alphas coming now in the couple of months. So hopefully in the next, if not the month after that, in the next community call, you will have the alpha revealed.
Well, I'm looking forward to that. So thank you so much, Doctor, for joining us today. This was a really insightful discussion, and you have given us a lot of alpha throughout the episode. So there's a lot of stuff to be excited about, both for DeCharge and DePIN in general. So thank you again, Doctor, and we really appreciate you spending the time with us today.
Yeah. Thanks for your appetite as well. As founders, we are very good at overwhelming people with information, but I'm glad that you gave me the opportunity to battle test you guys as well. Hopefully you guys can replay and see what are the alphas we visited. And all of these is going to have become like actual viral loops in the months to come. I'm very certain of that.
Thank you once again, and we'll definitely see each other like physically. I mean, in one of the conferences. Hopefully, I mean,
Breakpoint.
Yeah,
definitely.
Breakpoint for sure.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Nice one.
Yeah, it was really good. I mean, maybe because I love DePIN. Fucking hell.
Yeah, like I said, we're deep in aholic.
DePIN-aholic.
I'm expecting the editor to make some crazy animations even.
Yeah, like DePIN-aholic and then this.
Yeah.
The DePINs come in.
Yeah.
Imagine a fucking helium hotspot hitting us and then the EV charger from DeCharge hit it. Okay. So yeah, thank you guys very much. It was an amazing episode with Prakash from DeCharge. Yeah, looking forward to the next one. We've had like a couple of Web3 games in a row. Now we have a DePIN project, and then we're gonna have a couple of other DePIN, what the fuck? Web3 games in a row as well. So we love you. Dren, do you love them?
I mean, if I'm able to love you, I'm able to love anything.
Anything or anyone, men.
Anything and anyone.
We're probably gonna start some spaces soon as well. We'll keep you updated on that one, and we're probably gonna be part of the trade wars in Flash Day. That's gonna be a fucking awesome thing to cover, I swear. Because I mean, I'm probably just gonna try and dodge the trades because I'm a bad trader, but I know you for the fact I'm gonna 10x your fucking portfolio, and that's gonna make for some killer content because it's gonna be fun.
I would 10x the portfolio if I was doing it, alone without you near my presence.
It's gonna be like different. We're not gonna be one. You're gonna be on your own.
But you're still gonna be, in this room, right?
Yeah, fucking hell. Fuck that shit though.
But yeah,
just because you said that, I'm gonna have some good trades. So
we're just grateful for every opportunity that comes knocking. And also, don't forget, there's a giveaway going on. If you want to win a Pudgy Penguin action toy, make sure to interact with that specific post. You know which post I'm talking about.
If you don't, we're gonna probably put the link up under the comments because we'd like to make things easy for you guys. Okay, we love you. See you soon. Bye bye.